3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Texas Private School Podcast. As always, I am one-third of your hosting crew, Wes Tolleson. I am joined, as I always am, by Walker Lott and Ryan Schroeder from College Station and Stillwater, Oklahoma, respectively. I apologize if I sound a little bit rough. I think I got sick from watching Texas A&M's pitiful output against Appalachian State on Saturday. Me and Walker had about a 30-minute discussion once we got on the Zoom about what went wrong. We will save y'all all of those details. So, Walker Lott, Ryan Schroeder, how have y'all been doing? Walker, how is the past week? We'll just talk about private school football, so I won't let you get into what we watched on Saturday.
Yeah, that and the Cowboys, it's everything else besides high school football is not going well for me. So, yeah, I mean, it was a great week of football, another great week. Very good games, a lot of really good ones that were kind of close here and there, and just overall, just another great week.
Yeah, for sure. Ryan, how did you think the last week went in private school football?
No, it went great. Things flowed really smoothly. I think from us, from a standpoint, we had Wes out at a game. We basically did our first Twitter space on Friday night, which was a ton of fun. And overall, it was some games Saturday, and it was overall a good week. It was a good week, and I feel like we're getting into a flow of the season. So, yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, for sure. Make sure y'all tune into those. We are now going to be doing Twitter spaces every Friday after games, barring anything crazy. So they'll start around 10 p.m. most likely once we're all getting done covering games, and then it'll just roll until we're done recording them. So it was a really fun time. We got up to like 20 people in the first one. I think we all enjoyed how it flowed and how it went and the engagement from y'all. So make sure y'all tune into those Fridays at 10 p.m. But we will roll into our first segment as we always do, recapping last week's pick records. And this finally was kind of a return to normalcy of some sense. Ryan went 14-3. Walker went 13-4. I also went 14-3. So, I mean, the pick records cumulatively aren't what they should be at 32-18, 30-20, and 30-20. But a 14-3 week for me and Ryan, a 13-4 week for Walker. I mean, guys, I would say that that's pretty good. We're starting to round a little bit better into form after 2 weeks of really, really kind of crazy upsets. Walker, really quickly, your thoughts on your own pick record and us kind of rounding back into shape.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're finally, this is why we don't do rankings, just preseason rankings, and not in the week until like week 5, because we're finally getting to know, like, all right, what are these teams looking like? What are the teams that really are about it, and what teams were not as good as we anticipated? So, yeah, back to some normalcy.
Definitely so. Walker actually would have gone 14-3 if he would have picked a certain game and Tyler correctly. Ryan, you went 14-3 as well. You actually lead our pick record at 32-18, 2 games ahead of both me and Walker. Your thoughts on you leading the pick record as of now and our, sense of return to normalcy?
I'm going back to back. I think we have to understand at this point. I'm going back to back. Yeah, honestly, seriously, like we're back to normal. This is more like what it was last year. I had a couple picks where I wish I could go back on just because I feel like I kind of rushed my pick a little bit. So I really could have had a 15 or 16-1 week this week. So yeah, I'm excited. I honestly think that I feel like I'm actually learning the teams a little bit better. So it should be better for next week as well.
Yeah, for sure. But, I think at the end of the day, we're all just happy to have the pick records flowing a little bit closer to how they should be, even after 2 weeks of, just absolute insanity. But that'll recap our pick record, our pick record from the last week. Dude, I apologize. I told you I was sick from watching A&M. I can't formulate sentences like I should. But into our second segment, as always, the Texas Private School Podcast Players of the Week. And the Texas Private School Podcast Offensive Player of the Week is senior quarterback Stone Walker from Northland Christian. Stone Walker went 23 of 35 with 385 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 15 rushes for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns for 6 total touchdowns in his last game. I mean, Walker, I know we talked about how good we thought he looked in 7-on-7 and how we were interested to see how Stone Walker progressed as the season went on. What are your thoughts on him garnering during a performance significant enough to earn a Player of the Week recognition from us.
Yeah, I mean, he has all the tools, has all the intangibles, has a great arm, and he just displayed it this past week. And Northland starts 3-0 in the season with him at the helm, and I mean they look really, really good. And I'm just very, very impressed with him, man. He has that cool, calm, and collected mindset about him, which I just kind of like in quarterbacks. And just he's also versatile, scoring three. What is it, four? Or was it four in the air, three in the or two in the ground? So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, having that versatile dual threat action, but still being a really great passer at the end of the day is what you want in a quarterback.
Oh, without a doubt. Maybe he could suit up for A&M this Saturday. But Ryan, your thoughts on Stone Walker getting our quarterback of the Texas Private School Podcast Offensive Player of the Week recognition?
Yeah, very, very impressive. A good win over St. Joseph, and now this team's 3-0 under his realm. So, I think Stone Walker's doing really good for this team. You got wins against Legacy Prep, Frasati, if I'm said that right, and now St. Joseph. So very impressive, very, very impressive. And yeah, 6 touchdowns combined with over 450 yards of total offense is very, very impressive. So really good week for the Northland Christian quarterback.
Definitely so. So, yet again, congratulations to Stone Walker for winning our Texas Private School Podcast Offensive Player of the Week. I think I've already hit my weekly or my episode quota for verbal miscue, so I'm going to try to go the rest of the episode without, messing up or sounding too congested. So that's going to start now. So we're now looking at our Texas Private School Podcast Defensive Player of the Week, senior linebacker from St. Thomas, Jack Ward. In one of the better defensive stat lines we've seen this season, Ward recorded 16 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a forced fumble, and an interception, and a win against Nolan Catholic. So we obviously know we've talked about this very elite linebacking core for St. Thomas, as well as to complement their tremendous offense. Walker, what are your thoughts on Jack Ward proving that against Nolan Catholic this week?
Yeah, I mean, Jack Ward is the real deal, and that linebacking core is the real deal, and he's one of the seniors that leads that. And I just remember, not bringing it always back to 7-on-7, but just watching him in 7-on-7, watching their linebackers just go to work is very, very impressive. And he had an amazing performance this week. Was everywhere, needed to make the plays, and he did. And you can't ask more of a linebacker in a big, big win in the Catholic Bowl over Nolan Catholic.
I know there was a big question coming into the season that we knew St. Thomas's offense was going to be elite, but it was a question if their defense could keep up. And up to now, they've proven that they can. Ryan, your thoughts on Jack Ward and the St. Thomas defense really just being up to the challenge this year?
Yeah, it goes the same way for Jack Ward and the St. Thomas defense. Another 3-0 team that has gone off to a hot start, and they deserve it, man. I mean, they've gone out and beaten some pretty good teams: St. John's, Lumberton, and now Nolan Catholic in the Catholic Bowl this Saturday at the Star. So honestly, I'm really impressed, and honestly, for what it says, they helped hold the Nolan offense to only 14 points on 13 seasons. And then I think he was taken out, if I can read this correctly, he was taken out like through the third quarter or whatever. So absolute crazy stat line for Mr. Ward and St. Thomas. We'll see if they can keep it up. They got a hard schedule coming up after this week, and I'm interested to see if they can keep on closing out some wins.
I also want to say, if college coaches are looking at this kid, watch the tape. He's the real deal, and he stands at 6'3", 230. I mean, there's not much more you want in a linebacker than like what he does on the football field.
That's the recruiting analyst in you, just looking at height, weights, and intangibles.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I mean, you watch the film. I mean, it was very, very impressive. He reads the holes right, reads the gaps, and just strikes and attacks. And that's what you want in your linebacker.
Definitely so. But yet again, congratulations to Jack Ward for winning our Texas Private School Podcast Defensive Player of the Week. And also, I just got to say, I think the Catholic Bowl is one of the greatest just names in all of sports. For some reason, it's just so simple but to the point, and I love it so much. It's hard for me to even get across in words. But also, we said we needed to mention. He didn't win either of our players of the weeks, but he was very, very close. Junior Kevin Daughter from Lake Country Christian. He went 8 for 18 with 85 yards and a touchdown. passing, right, Ryan?
Yeah, that's passing.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's passing. Well, I guess that's the only stat that you have 8 for 18 in. But 49 yards rushing with a touchdown, a kickoff return for a touchdown, a blocked extra point return, 109 yards for a 2-point conversion, as well as 6 tackles, 2 picks, and a forced fumble. Ryan, I mean, you found Doddard's stat line. I mean, what are your thoughts on just this absolute alphabet soup of a stat line?
So I've known Kevin and his brother and his older brother JD when he used to play at Lake Country. I've been following Kevin, especially his basketball career as well. Like, let it be known, this Doddard family has been probably the team that, or like the family that's been taking over Lake Country Christian. These past few years and stuff like that. I mean, 3 brothers all playing for the same school, and now more than ever they're taking over. Dougie, I think is his other brother's name that's still playing the same age as him. They're absolutely nuts. And you could have told me that this stat line was split into 3 different people, and I probably wouldn't have believed you. Like, this is a stat line that if all done by one person, I kind of thought to myself, like, all right, well, you're kind of lying to me, but yeah, this came straight. If I'm not mistaken, this came straight from like the what's called the assistant athletic director from Lake Country. So I was like, all right, like, that's right, I guess. So crazy stat line. I mean, are we kidding? He scored on the 2 times on the special team side, 2 times on offense. Like, just very, very just overall play by Kevin Doddard.
Walker, your quick thoughts on Kevin Doddard's performance.
I mean, he was the guy that was going to be like when Hayden White's left Lake Country, and they were like, who can you rely on? I mean, the Doddard family was one of those guys, like him and Dougie are going to be guys that you're going to have to look forward to this next year. And Kevin, is now, doing the quarterback position, took over for Hollingsworth over there, and he's been nonstop, just impressive. And I mean, they took it after White's left, I believe they took a down year a little bit, but I mean, they look sharp going into this year, I believe. Dude, Lake Country is 3-0 this year, man. With
That's
wins over Thrall, John Paul, and McKinney Christian to start the year. So 3 good wins for them, and they look like they're going to have a great challenge. They have, I think, the bye week this week, but then they have Northland Christian with Stone Walker next week Friday. So
Yeah.
Great start of the week in the Doddards.
That's
Yeah,
gonna be
it's good.
interesting. Is Stone Walker versus Kevin Doddard if he's playing the defensive side of that? I'm interested to see how that goes down in a couple weeks for sure, especially since both those guys we already mentioned in the podcast today.
No, I am too. I think that'll be a fantastic matchup to see how both of those very fantastic athletes do against each other. But now we're going to transition into talking about our last week's matchups, looking at our Texas Private School Media football scoreboard that Ryan does an excellent job with every week. And guys, I'm actually going to turn this over to you and let y'all talk about it for a few minutes. I'm actually going to, well, you'll see what I've done when I come back. Just give me a few seconds. Y'all go ahead.
All right, let's go through the games then, Ryan.
I have. Oh, okay. This can't be good.
He's gone black. All
Yeah,
right.
this can't be good.
No.
Uh,
Let's go. I'm just gonna go down the line. TWCA over SP St. Pius. I mean, I picked the episode we did with kind of who we bet on to do good this year. I had St. Pius. That's just not good this year. TWCA looks really, really good. Argyle Liberty beating TCS Lubbock was kind of maybe expected, but TCS Lubbock scoring 25 and keeping it in a 10-point game is very, very impressive.
Yeah, I agree. I very much agree. I think with Argyle Liberty, we did think they were going to win that game, but I'm satisfied with that for TCS Lubbock. That's a good game. That's a very, very good game against a Liberty team that has proven themselves so far.
Maybe like we always say, like Dallas Christian is the team to beat, right, in D3, but with Grace Prep kind of doing good and TCS Lubbock looking better, I mean, it's not like it's going to be a home run easy for them for DC with all these teams looking strong. I mean, ESD over Grapevine Faith. I mean, ESD just looks really good this year. And I mean, Grapevine Faith is a great team and they held them to 7 points with really good backfield. So that's very, very impressive win for ESD. Oh, look who's joined us now. Wes Tolleson with his Grace Community shirt. I'm very proud of you. Go Cougs.
Thank you.
I can admit when I'm wrong. Okay. Gosh. You're
best part. You're about to have
humility.
That's crazy.
I have made a terrible lapse of judgment and I apologize. Go Cougs. Guard, you
And that's
disappointed me.
and that's a deep drive by Castellanos. I'm just gonna, I'm just joking.
Follow no context TXPS. I've heard those guys do a good job over there.
They really do. Going to the next game, St. John's over Fort Bend Christian. What?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember we talked about this on the space. Yeah. We'll talk about more. We'll talk more about some, micro level stuff that might need to be adjusted, but there's just not a lot from that makes sense.
Like, do we know like how it happened? Like, do we know anything like that yet?
This is what I'll say. It's just St. John's is actually like the 4 games that they opened up with this year. They play St. Thomas, Houston Christian, Fort Bend, then Second Baptist, and now Lutheran South after that, which is proving to be a good team too, because they're 3-0. Like, St. John's is just loaded up their non-district schedule heavy early. And they're 2-1. They're 2-1, and a 16-point loss of those 16 points is not that bad to St. Thomas, who's like that big of a powerhouse. So go win over Fort Bend, and yeah, if they can put up a fight against Second Baptist this week, St. John's is doing well.
St. John's is legit.
I mean, and Cole Allen, got his this already through 3 weeks. 3 weeks, 10 touchdowns, 600 total yards through 3 weeks. Cole Allen is ball lean this year.
He's a sophomore.
College coaches, look out for this kid. 2025 from Houston St. John's. And also, Stephen Gill, the quarterback, has done really well. And got to give credit to that defense. And we'll leave it there. Got to give credit to that defense for holding Fort Bend to only 28 points in that high prolific offense. Yeah, I mean, you got to tip your cap to that St. John's team. And they are looking a lot better than expected this year. And just shout out to them, man.
Yeah, the last thing, we'll talk about most of these other games, but the last thing, I mean, Ryan, Cistercian 47, Frisco Legacy 0. I mean, there's got to be some sort of explanation for that.
Is Cistercian not 3-0 as well? To be fair,
they are.
Cistercian's 3-0 as well, and I actually picked Cistercian not this past week, but the last game before this, and I was right. I mean, I'm high on Cistercian. Now that legacy loss looks atrocious. But like in all reality, it's like, look at the score right below it. It's Regents beating Geneva Burney 47-0, and Geneva Burney, it's like the same score, but Geneva Burney actually has some really good wins this year too.
Yeah, they beat St. Michael's.
They beat St. Michael's.
They did, yeah.
So in all reality, it's like, yeah, that's a bad week, but Geneva's going to bounce back too with probably another win. They're going to sneak in, and I don't think a non-district loss of Cistercian ruins your entire game, ruins your entire season. So you're not in district yet, but yeah, the one game I wanted to bring up, which I think is very, very important, is Lutheran South shuts out Cypress. Lutheran South is 3-0, and I think it's important to bring up the fact that they are on the rise this week, and I'm excited to see what they're doing. Building up a 3-0 team is impressive, and we expected a lot from Cypress again this year, and getting shut out. I don't know, the defending state champions. You would think that it'd be a little bit different, but I just want to get what y'all are thinking about that as well.
Yeah.
I think Lutheran South's legit, and you got to remember it's a D2. It's still a D2 school playing a D3 school.
You're right.
I don't think they should have gotten shut out, but I think that speaks more to Lutheran South's potential this year than it does to Cypress Christian and their need to readjust.
Yeah. And I also, I want to do like quick thoughts on some other ones. Pleasant Grove beating Midland only by 20. Very impressive win or loss for Midland against a Pleasant Grove team who went to like the state championship in their division for like 4 straight years.
Right.
Like 3 at least. Other games. For SES is back on track with a win over Oak Ridge. They started out slow, but finally win in the second half, usually like they did last year. St. Joseph losing to Houston Northland. Great win for Stone Walker over a D2 team in St. Joseph, and Houston Northland's taps D4. That's a big win for them.
Yeah.
And Weatherford Christian just beat Covenant Christian last year. Like a little bit, like I think overtime or something like that, Wes, right? and now they have a solid 2-score win over Covenant. So that's very impressive win for Weatherford Christian against Ian Etta, the Michigan commit, and others. So that's really impressive. And the last game I want to talk about, Prestonwood over Little Elm, another 6A school losing to Prestonwood. So Prestonwood didn't even beat who they lose to first week. I forget who it was, but
Liberty,
right?
Yeah.
And so I think it shows like, hey, one or two things. Prestonwood is back to being who they kind of are, we thought they were going to be, or a lot of private school teams can compete with a lot of good 6A schools like at Little Elm.
Right.
I mean, Little Elm is not like a top 10 team in 6A or anything like that, but they're still a 6A public school. So it's very, very impressive. So I think that's all the games I really wanted to talk about this week.
I have one more.
Go for it.
John Cooper St. Mark's. So I just want to talk John Cooper. John Cooper, another really great win, 50-14 over St. Mark's. Absolutely great win. SBC battle. And Vaughn McKeever had a great night. That night he went 410 total yards with 5 touchdowns combined. Touchdowns combined. It's a great night. Was definitely what's called somebody that was competing for our player of the week this week. So I just want to give a shout out to Vaughn McKeever and that John Cooper School team in our Twitter space. Join those on Friday nights. We were talking a lot about that game because we had a lot of people from John Cooper in there. We had John Cooper schools. Is that their athletic director?
John
Yes,
Hoy, yeah.
athletic director. We had him on in there. So yeah, join our Twitter spaces. It was a ton of fun, and I think we bring people on to speak as well. So a little shout out to that.
Yeah, for sure. But following that, we will now transition into talking about our last week's matchups that we covered in depth. There are 5 of those, starting with the best one, in my opinion, Brook Hill versus Grace Community. After initially going up 13-0, Brook Hill and Grace went back and forth until Grace eventually did what Grace always does against Brook Hill, barring an act of God such as a monsoon, and won the game 31-20. Quarterback JT Williams threw 2 touchdowns for the Cougars, and Reed Alexander, who I think is one of the most underrated athletes in the state, threw 1 and also caught 1. Grant Turner and Will Bozeman also caught touchdowns. Jonah McCowan, Noah Langemeyer, and Xavier Kendrick also had impressive performances for the guard. So, I'm not going to spend too long talking about it. I mean, Grace beats Brook Hill. That's to be expected. Walker, I mean, you can say your piece on the issue.
I was close. I'll give myself. It was a close game. Was
this horseshoes or hand grenades?
No, it is not, and that's why we love football. But yeah, you got to give credit to that team. Grace looked really good. Got it. The reckoning. Of finally Wes not being able to get it done his senior year. So that was a big thing for this team.
Went 3-1. I can live with that.
Yeah, I bet that. Yeah, for sure. But I want to say, hey, Jonah McCown, did you know what family he's from? You remember
the McCowans, the NFL McCowans?
Yeah, so that's a really good NFL blood in that team.
He's coaching there at Brook Hill.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I didn't know about that before I looked into them this past week. So shout out to Jonah McCown for trying a good game. But hey, Reed Alexander, I will agree with you, Wes. I think he's a dog, man. That team looks really, really impressive with a lot of those guys. Nick Stewart, right, is another one of those guys.
Yeah, Jamarion Johnson. Yeah,
they look really good, and I will maybe agree with y'all that Taps D2 could be one to watch.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think there's a lot of teams in there that are underrated. And as much as I kid about Brook Hill, there's obviously no real hate there. I really like, I went to Brook Hill for like 6 years. I really like Coach Ryle and the program they're developing there. And I think they're gonna be very competitive in Division III. So Ryan, your quick thoughts on Brook Hill versus Grace this past Friday.
I mean, I don't have much to say. Y'all got it wrapped up. This was definitely y'all's battle this week, but what do you feel about being 3-0, Wes? Grace is 3-0 for the first time in I don't even know how long, right?
I'll say what I've told my other friends. I'm excited. It's good. Coming off of the horrendous embarrassment that the last couple seasons have been. However, I mean, Wills Point and Winona are both dog water. I mean, they're trash programs. Brook Hill was a good win. Brook Hill was a hump that we needed to get over because we hadn't beat them in, I think, a couple years. But now we're going to see what we're made of coming up. I mean, once we get into district and we're playing tough teams like Faith, Dunn, and Frisco Legacy, if Legacy's up to par, then I think we're going to see what we're made of. But I think Grace is, for the first time in a while, trending the right direction, and I'm happy to see it. But that is all we will talk about regarding Brook Hill and Grace. Now we transition to Fort Worth Nolan versus Houston St. Thomas, which was a 45-28 victory for St. Thomas. And as expected, St. Thomas gets the W here behind 200 yards rushing from star running back Johan Cardenas and five touchdowns from Cardenas. Just crazy stats. 5. Dante Lewis also throws for 250 yards and two touchdowns. Matsuda, Antonio Hall, and DK Smitic had valiant efforts for the Vikings, but man, it is almost impossible to stop the St. Thomas offense that Rich McGuire has made into arguably the best machine in all of TAPS. So, Walker, St. Thomas gets the win over Nolan. I mean, Nolan's been trending in the right direction recently, but I think St. Thomas is just flat out the better team. We all expected that. Your thoughts on the Eagles getting the victory here?
Yeah, I mean, I think Houston St. Thomas, like we've said since forever, that they look like the for sure team in the South this year, and they look really good, and they displayed it again today. And it finally took a while, Wes, right? Like Dante Lewis was being the guy for them for the past couple of weeks, just throwing the ball, but yeah, Johan Cardenas kind of said, "Hey, let me go to work," and he finally got that game, and this was the one. So very, very impressive win, especially for him. But yeah, I mean, it's not like Nolan played terrible. Cole threw up 222 yards. DK Smitic put up 128 yards rushing, and Antonio Hall had 109 yards receiving. So they had dudes that were popping off, but they just couldn't get over the hump. And guys like Zach what was the guy who just won? Yeah, guys like Jack Ward were very, very impressive for St. Thomas this week on the defensive side. One aspect that is interesting about the Nolan defense, they let Dante Lewis throw 3 picks. He had 3 picks this game. So I'm not saying picks are everything, but having 3 picks for that St. Thomas offense is kind of impressive for that Nolan defense. And should help them going down the line in playoff time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I just think it's so hard to stop an offense that has Lewis, Cardenas, Schaefer, and Edgecombe all playing on it. There's just crazy. There's just so many different directions you can go.
And Larry Benton had finally kind of came out this week and had 65 receiving yards. Think about that. Multiple, like, what is it? One, two, three, four, five, 6 guys had more than 2 catches on that team. So they had weapons everywhere. And 2 guys over 60 yards receiving, with Johan Cardenas being one of them. Johan Cardenas is a dog, bro. I mean, he should get some big, I think, Power 5 looks, to be honest, for how good he is, man. 68 yards receiving and 190 yards rushing. I mean, very impressive. And I'm expecting that to even grow. I'm probably a 2,000 yard rushing season this year around there.
I think he could definitely do that. I mean, Ryan, your thoughts on St. Thomas beating Nolan?
Yeah, so from what I understand, from what the comment we had with Jack Ward, is this St. Thomas defense, I think, got subbed out for, like, the starters got subbed out at the end of the third quarter, so they were up 42-14 before then, which just proves that St. Thomas is like putting on like an absolute defensive, like, just stoppage with how they're playing, only letting up 14 points on the starters did. Very, very impressive. Honestly, we saw the 5 touchdowns by Johan. I think it's very clear to see that the St. Thomas team is going to be a threatening one to try to stop. Would you even say, Wes, that they could be a rolling ball of chainsaws?
The rolling ball of chainsaws is verbiage that I only use when it's absolutely necessary. I need more data on St. Thomas to call them a rolling ball of chainsaws. However, we're going to shelf that for now. It could come out. Come out.
All right. That's a little preview for anybody. That's a preview for St. Thomas. You have a chance to be the rolling ball of chainsaws. Potential is there.
The potential is there. I need to see how they perform in district, but it definitely is there. Ryan, I enjoyed your Be Real. I just took mine as well. But
Heck yeah.
moving into our third game, we have Munster Sacred Heart and Shiner St. Paul played in a game that I think all three of us got. No, someone picked Sacred Heart, didn't they? Of
Me and
course,
Ryan
Walker.
did.
Oh, both of y'all picked Sacred Heart?
Yeah, we
Oh,
did.
shoot. Well, never mind. In a game that only the idiot Wes Tolleson got wrong, Sacred Heart beats St. Paul 30-20. I couldn't find a write-up on this game for the life of me. So yeah, this is kind of a big deal because it's Sacred Heart beating the four-time defending champion St. Paul. And there might be a sort of culture shift going on here in TAPS D4. So Walker, what are your thoughts on Sacred Heart getting it done against, the perennial champions, Shiner St. Paul?
Yeah, I guess it is a little bit of a culture shift, right? Like shift. Um, it's impressive that Munster kind of came in this ready to go, and Ryan Sarinsky, a guy that we've been high on this since last year, kind of came to play this time around. Uh, 20 for their first big score, he keeps it, stiffs arms a guy and goes 26 yards for the score. What else? I'm just kind of that was a 4-play 79-yard drive by Sacred Heart. Every play was a Ryan Sarinsky run to score. And then another one, Ryan Sarinsky goes 34 yards for the score to make it 20-30. He kind of put the team on his back a little bit, scored all three times. And that's what you kind of expect when that big of a competitor and that good of a player. Waxsmith, the quarterback, actually had a really good game too. Scored, I think, twice with his I think like 48-yard touchdown to Charlie Pilot, and then also a 60-yard bomb to make it close, I believe, to make it a 24-20 game for over with Sacred Heart winning. And I'm just rambling. I know, I apologize, but I'm kind of just telling y'all about the game a little bit. Waxsmith with a 60-yard touchdown for the score, and then Ryan Zrinsky goes 34 yards to kind of get the game and thing to make it 30-20. So yeah, very back and forth game, but I think Munster Sacred Heart kind of had the game, and they looked like the better team maybe for the first time in a while. So yeah, like you said, Wes, maybe a little bit of a culture shift.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyways, Ryan, your thoughts on Sacred Heart kind of, upending the defending state champions in Shiner St. Paul.
Yeah, my guy, Tanner Spearman, a guy that I used to be at Oklahoma State sports media major like myself, he wrote a good article about this game. Excuse me. But he was basically just talking about how the end of the game, right before that Sprozinski touchdown, the 34-yarder, they had a trick play from Sprozinski where he threw a backwards pass and then they threw it down the right sideline to Zach Hennigan. And I think what you have to believe is, like, you're up 24-20. You want to play it safe. You just want to rush the ball, take the time off the clock. And obviously Shilden was talking about how, they've been running that play for a while. So it's a very gutsy call when you want to run the clock out and you're up by 4 points and you know that a field goal doesn't get them to tie y'all. But I like the gutsy call. I like wanting to play to put you up 2 scores. And overall, it was a good win for Sacred Heart. Me and Walker there, for me, at least in the last podcast, I was kind of thinking to myself, like, I really want to pick Shiner, but for some reason, I've known how good Strozinski has been, and this just proves it to me again that he's doing elite stuff for this Sacred Heart team. And you can't tell me that he's not been elite for them. And honestly, that's the reason why I picked them for this game, was because of him. And I'm glad to say that I think I was right.
Yeah, you were. I'm sure these two teams will see each other again at some point. I'll be very, very intrigued to see how that second matchup goes. But moving on into Second Baptist at Bel Air Episcopal, I actually was on hand covering this game this last Friday. Thank you so much again to Jason Grove and Bel Air Episcopal for the incredible hospitality I was shown. But as for the game, we had heard a lot of noise about junior quarterback Carson Gordon transferring and this Bel Air team. And we also caught a lot of flack for ranking them number 2 in the state in our preseason rankings. But man, did they prove why on Friday. Between Gordon, Lane Linebarger, and Andre Thompson, this EHS offense is a force to be reckoned with. They took the victory 35-14 behind a 4-touchdown effort from Gordon. Freshman linebacker Madden Morgan and sophomore Garen Sampson also had impressive efforts on the defensive side of the ball, holding a talented Second Baptist team to 2 scores. As for Second Baptist, Turner Murdoch, Ben Levine, and Kyle Cole Morgan all looked very, very good. Cole Morgan looks even more impressive than last year and is taking on an increased load on the offense side of the ball. He's also looking like one of the better lead blockers I've seen at the high school level. He laid out a couple of really mean blocks, but he's taking on a much more increased role, like I mentioned, in Second Baptist's offense. He's not just a linebacker anymore. But Walker, Bel Air proves that their talent translates to more than just talking. They play it on the football field. Your thoughts on them getting the win here, 35-14 against Second Baptist?
Second Baptist is not a bad team whatsoever, but Bel Air looks the real deal, like you said. And the weapons that they have, I mean, it's just so hard because if you want to lock down one of them, you have 2 other guys that are just as good. Or so you have to it's just going to be so hard to defend that offense for Bel Air. And also, like I said, Bel Air's defense is really, really good. And Madden Morgan, I totally forgot about this guy, Wes, on the top of my head. But yeah, Madden Morgan was a guy who's been an Under Armour underclassman for like middle school Under Armour watch guy, I remember. And finally into as a freshman, right? He's 6'1", 215. That is
He's
a huge number 3 ranked outside linebacker in 2026 via his Twitter bio. But I mean, he's definitely one to watch, and I totally forgot about that because he is the real deal, and he'll be one to watch going forward. But with him and everyone else on that defense, with that Jason Ota and guys like that, I mean, they are the real deal, man.
Definitely so. Ryan, your thoughts on Bel Air taking it to Second Baptist on Friday?
This is kind of what I was expecting. I think it's what we're all expecting. In all reality, we've come to terms with the fact that it literally is parish and is Episcopal, and then it is everybody else. So I think that's kind of how I see it. And yeah, Second Baptist shouldn't feel bad at all about this loss. Obviously, Episcopal's a great team. They proved to be a really great team. And I think Second Baptist is still going to be very, very successful. 2 losses early. You had a tough loss against Prestonwood where you only lost by 4. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how these guys can do. I'm Carson Gordon. I think he's been effective for EHS. I'm just excited to see what Bel Air can keep on producing and whether they can keep on producing the team that we thought they were when we put them in number 2.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think they can, but I'm going to be following them closely to see how they do in SPC play. Moving into the last game that we have to recap from the last week, that is Grace Prep versus Fort Worth Christian. FWC jumped out to a 21-7 lead in the first, and they really never looked back after that. Sophomore quarterback Hogan Nelson threw for 5 touchdowns, 2 to Jordan Green and Jacob Trimble each, where Addison Curtin led the Cardinals receiving with 117 yards and a touchdown. Lion star quarterback Jalen Talton also got his with over 300 yards passing and a couple touchdowns. But this Fort Worth Christian team was just too much for Grace Prep this week. I mean, Walker, we talked about that we had questions about Fort Worth Christian moving into the season. We know the talent is always there. We're just never sure how they're going to gel as a team. I mean, they're looking solid up to this point. What are your thoughts on them getting a win over a good Grace Prep team?
Yeah, I mean, they've had, Dublin was an easy kind of win to start out the year, but Bishop Dunn and Grace Prep, that's 2 really good, one D2 team and one D3 team that are really, really good. And they're showing why that offense is just so good. And Hogan Nelson, we've talked about him since last year. Just the 25 quarterback is the real deal. And having weapons of Trimble and Jordan is just so easy to go and just dominate with. And I mean, I hate saying it, but does Fort Worth Christian look better than SES right now? I mean, they beat Grace Prep and SES didn't. So we talked about SES being that number 2 team in that division or district. I mean, I think that district is up the grabs anymore. But we talked about how it could be any of those guys. But I mean, not as good as what we expected it to be. It's that district is wide open.
Definitely so. I mean, there's a lot of questions now following these past couple of weeks. But Ryan, what are your thoughts on Fort Worth Christian getting a win here over Grace Prep?
I think we can very much see that Jalen Talton still had a great game. 364 yards and 2 touchdowns, going 22 for 37. It's still an amazing game for Mr. Talton. But it is very clear to see that he's got one receiver that he likes to put a lot where he kind of is his favorite target. It's Rain Broadway, the junior. He had 146 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, a night for Mr. Broadway. And I think Grace Prep is just a very pass heavy offense this year with Talton. And I understand why. If you have Talton at quarterback, why wouldn't you throw the ball, right? But for the Hogan Nelson side of things, they spread it out pretty well. The touchdowns went to Trimble and Green for 2 of them apiece and stuff like that, but they were able to get a lot of yards and 8 receptions to Addison Cureton, the what's it called, the senior. So a lot of overall, your quarterback's a sophomore, but you have lots of seniors on that wide receiving core that kind of lead this team. Very, very impressive night. And overall, I'm very, very satisfied with what I saw from Fort Worth Christian. A bye this week is what comes up, but I mean, we're getting straight into not it's actually not district, it's a non-district game, but what it would have been a district game last year against Grapevine Faith. I'm interested to see that matchup come back between Fort Worth Christian and Grapevine Faith. Is Grapevine Faith still a dominant team, even though they got a loss to ESD? I think so. I think ESD is just a really good team. Now, as Fort Worth Christian, you got 2 wins to get a Bishop Dunn and a Grace Prep. You're still undefeated. How does that correlate with Grapevine Faith? That's actually going to be a really, really good game. And I'm excited for the old, which would have been a district matchup these past few years, coming back for a non-district matchup between these 2 teams.
Yeah, I think it'll be a great game. And to your point, I'm getting more and more excited as we're inching closer and closer to district, just to see, it's about to actually really matter. Not saying non-district games don't, but the real season's about to start. I think that gives a sense of excitement that should be palpable moving forward. But that actually concludes all the games that we were recapping from last week. We're going to take a quick segue segment and talk about, something that I think needs to be addressed. Is the cheese sliding off the cracker for Fort Bend Christian? They started 1-2. They have consecutive losses to DC and St. John's, both good teams in their own right. But, we had Fort Bend Christian in a league of their own this season. I just want to ask y'all, I'll pose the question, and either one of y'all can take this. Do you think preseason hype bred a sense of complacency for Fort Bend Christian?
Wow, what a question.
Yeah,
What a question.
What does cheese sliding off the cracker mean? I don't think I've heard that one.
It's when things just kind of like, well, just think about it this way. If you're eating some nice, if you're eating a charcuterie board and you put the cheese on the cracker and you go to like, everything's going to plan, you're going to eat the cheese, and then all of a sudden the cheese falls off the cracker. You had something that was supposed to be going really right, and then it doesn't. So things are going good, then the cheese starts to slide off the cracker a little bit.
Yeah, that's actually a great analogy to this Fort Bend team. I see what you did there. No, it's not. I don't think it's fully over yet, and that may be me being a little kind of like trying to save their butts a little bit. But in all reality, DC's an amazing team. It has been an amazing team. St. John's has proven to be a good team. I don't think those 2 losses are detrimental to you. Yeah, they're not the team that we maybe thought they were going to be at the beginning of the year, but in all reality, 2 losses to those 2 teams. If you're telling me that you're losing to I'm not going to say any teams, but if you're
Frisco Legacy, really,
yeah, I'm not going to say that. If you're telling me that you're losing to some like D4 teams or whatever, or some other teams that are the bottom barrel D3 or whatever, yeah, I'm gonna be a little like, okay, let's fact check this. But this is a D3 DC team that's like the top of D3, one of the best D2 teams in this past era, and this is a St. John's team that's proving that they're gonna do well in the SPC this year. I have no problem with FPCA getting off to a slow start. I think they can turn it around.
So, Walker, I'm actually going to ask you the question again directly. Do you think the preseason hype that Fort Bend had going into the season, do you think that bred a sense of complacency for Fort Bend? Do you think that made them get a little bit comfortable?
I mean, it is awful. I think could be, definitely. I mean, yeah, I just think The question is, I guess, like it could be yes, but now it's how do you handle adversity, right? Same with the A&M Aggies, for
I
example,
was
right?
gonna say the same
Right.
thing.
You came in with a lot of hype. You lost the big one to Appalachian State, and for this one, Fort Bend loses to St. John's and DC, who, I mean, technically don't have the Division One offers like you have on your team around the board. Athletes, quarterbacks, linemen, everywhere. You have Division One offered dudes. Okay, you have got you're a more talented team. I think that's like anyone can say they have the Division One offers, guys. They have the quarterback commit going to an Ivy League. They have the more talented roster, but you haven't won games. You're 1-2. So how do you handle that adversity? Do you say, oh, maybe we're not as good, man? Let's just whatever, man. Let's just play the season and get it over with. Or do you be like, no, like we're one of the most talented teams in all of private school. We need to play like it. And let's see how they rebound, man. I mean, who do they play next? They start the season. Play. Oh, I'll play Addison Trinity Christian this week. Another talented team. I mean, this is the reason. By the way, this is the reason they played these games because they think they're that talented to play in TAPS Division 1-2 in a 6A Cibolo Steel school.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the guys to compete. They just need to have the mindset of like, we are these guys and we need to win and take away from the losses and just overcome that, man. You just gotta, hey, it's next week. It's a business trip. You gotta go and compete, man.
Yeah, I think it boils down to the fact that they've gotten punched in the mouth, and it just depends on how they're going to respond. There's two paths. You can shy away from it, tuck your tail between your legs, and just kind of finish the season, or you can come out twice as aggressive as you come out before and win games. I mean, I think it's very simple, and I think Fort Bend has the ability to get that done. It's just going to depend on will they moving forward, Ryan.
Yeah. Do you see like it's TCA Addison, Cibolo Steel, Houston Lutheran South, Houston Second Baptist, then the Wilderness Christian? You have a chance to redeem yourself, right? You would definitely have a chance to redeem yourself. All these teams, Cibolo Steel is, UIL, but all these teams are doing really, really well in private school right now. You have a chance to redeem yourself, in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think we'll actually detail that TCA Fort Bend game here in a few minutes. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a fantastic storyline moving forward, and it's one we will be following for sure. But that provides a nice transition into our games of the week 5, as always, with commentary, starting with Cistercian versus Trinity Valley. Cistercian comes into the contest 3-0. Trinity Valley is 1-2. The line is Cistercian minus 16.5. SBC 3A will kick off district play this week as Cistercian will travel to Fort Worth to take on Trinity Valley. The Hawks have looked impressive thus far, garnering wins against JP2, St. Mark's, and most recently, a 47-0 shellacking of Frisco Legacy. Sorry, Ryan. The powerful Hawk offense, averaging 46 points a game, is led by quarterback Dan O'Toole, wide receiver Michael Peterman, and the defense has been solid behind contributions from linebacker Noso Unini and safety JP Rapolo. Those are two very hard names to say back to back. On the other side, Trinity Valley has losses to bigger schools, Southwest Christian and Bishop Dunn, but they beat the brakes off of TAPS D3 Power Pantego. Class of 25 quarterback Gavin Parkhurst leads the Trojans and is a solid contributor to an elite sophomore quarterback class. This game is a hard one to pick, in my opinion, despite the huge spread. However, I'm going to have to go with Cistercian here. I really like Coach Burke and the way that team is put together. I think they're a very good team, and I think they have the ability to beat Trinity Valley this week and give me Cistercian to win. Walker, are you going to side with the Fort Worth side?
I think I am. I'm gonna pick the upset in this game with Fort Worth Trinity Valley, and I mean I really like Gavin Parkhurst, man. The 2025 quarterback is the real deal, and he just has had really good successful seasons the past 2 years, and he's having another good one this year. So I really like him. Carter Lee, the 24 athlete, guys like that. I just Peppa Reagan, Hudson Jameson. I really like this team, man. And I mean, if you look at their schedule, right, they hung 21 on SES. 53 on Pantico, and scored 35 on Bishop Dunn, which is really, really impressive. So, I mean, I'm just going to go with the Fort Worth school in this one, even though they're my rivals. But, like, I mean, you got to give credit where there's credit due. And I think TVS could upset one, especially when they're at home.
Very interesting. Ryan, your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, if my brother didn't just go to Legacy this past week and tell me how good Dan O'Toole looked, I would be more leaning towards, maybe seeing Trinity Valley in this game. But my brother told me Dan O'Toole is like the main guy, and like him and Michael Peterman like play super, super well together. So it's really, really hard for me to shine away from that. He said that like it just flows really well for that offense. And I think Legacy. So if I have to put this like up together, like I think Legacy could give Trinity Valley a run for their money. So with that logic, if Cistercian just beat the brakes off of Trinity Valley, I think I'd have to go Cistercian here. So I think Cistercian wins it. 16.5 is a lot of freaking points, but yeah, I think the Cistercian wins it here. And I think that's a good win for Cistercian. I want to see how they keep doing, and Cistercian really could go 4-0, which will be interesting.
Shoot, guys, I just remembered we can't do the spreads anymore because some people find them offensive. So we're gonna have to take spreads out of all of our content. No, the spreads aren't going anywhere.
We love the spreads.
If you think this indicates gambling on high school football, you need to get your cranium checked. We use them as measuring sticks basically to see what computer projections predict that the games are going to be. But yeah, to your point, I also like how you've used Legacy now as just kind of a measuring stick to see where teams are. I think that's fantastic. I love just picking out teams like that throughout the year and just like using them as a big measuring stick to see, okay, well, if you beat him by this much, but they lost to you by this much, but then you lost to them on this day by this much, then you're going to win.
Yeah, see, I try to do that for the whole like Grace Prep, Southwest Christian Oak Ridge thing, and then none of that made sense.
That'll break your brain. But moving on, I said about 3 minutes ago that we would get to it, and here we are, Fort Bend Christian at Trinity Christian Addison. Fort Bend Christian is 1-2. TCA is 0-3. The line is Fort Bend -1.5. And I think this one actually should be a really good game despite the subpar records from both sides. Both teams are in similar spots. The talent is certainly there, but they have both had rocky starts to the season due to the quality of their previous opponents. However, something has to give here. I mean, some team has to win. Will Fort Bend's offense kick into gear behind Dever, Warren, Gardoni, Domino, and Sellers, or will Mills, Shaw, Snyder, and Johnston get rolling for TCA? Call me what you want. A lot of people say a lot of different things, but I haven't abandoned the Eagles quite yet. The talent's still there, and I trust that behind Coach Black, they will get it figured out. For the sake of my pick record, I hope they do. Give me Fort Bend Christian in a close one. I'm very curious to see what both of you say for this game. Walker, your thoughts?
I'm going to go against you. I'm going to go TCA Addison in this one. I think Coach Hayes will get them ready to go. Aiden Mills looks the part, and I really like Luke Johnson, like I said. Luke Dorey on the other side looks pretty good. Chance Snyder is the real deal. I think that team is really good. And but I mean, I think Fort Bend is going to come to play, and they're going to be ready to go, and they're going to compete really, really well with this. I think this is going to be a really high. I think this is going to be like a high scoring, just shootout, and I really am excited to see this game. And I think, Wes, one thing we have to mention is they lost the Fort Worth All Saints, right? They lost them by 3. And we've said since the summer that it might be an All Saints Fort Bend matchup in the D2 state championship. So if they blow out TCA Addison, they look like the favorites maybe in the South. But if they lose badly or something like that to TCA Addison, this is the first game that kind of is like, all right, how do we compare teams in North and South,
People forget that the farther we get into the season, the easier picking games becomes because there's a lot more common opponents. It's very hard to do right now. And I think this Fort Bend TCA Addison game kind of accentuates that more than anything else. But Ryan, yet again, we are on both sides of the argument. Who are you going to side with?
So I was paying attention really closely to this ESD Grapevine Faith this past weekend, and I really saw a lot out of the ESD defense that I know is very, very strong. And TCA Addison put 43 up on ESD's defense, which I think is very impressive. Now, they didn't score against Gunner, which I don't really care about. That game, honestly, is just a game to toughen up them in all reality in my eyes.
And Gunter went to the state championship
Yeah,
last year in 3A or
like
4A.
that's
3A.
that's just like toughening up your players type of thing, in my opinion. But for with All Saints, only putting up 10 against them. So in all reality, it would say that you don't want to pick an 0-3 team, right? Like you don't want to, but my golly, this might be the best 0-3, 1-2 matchup I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Both these teams are so super talented. But yeah, I've said a lot about TC Addison, but I'm gonna go with TC Addison. I think they win it here just based on the reality that like they're a strong team. I know they have it there. And Fort Bend is very, very effective. And obviously that TC game was so close. Like that game literally could have gone to them no matter what. The St. John's game was close, but I'm really impressed with 43 points against EST's defense for some reason. I think that's very impressive. So, and I'm high on ESD. I'm high on All Saints as well. And so close games with both of those kind of puts me in a position to pick TC Addison here.
I'm confident in the Eagles. I think we will be recording a week from now, and I will be sitting here saying I'm glad I picked Fort Bend Christian. I'm just, for some reason, I have a very calm confidence about that.
Or it could be the Sacred Heart versus Shiner St. Paul over one over again.
It could be, but I don't know if I was that confident about that. I knew a lot less.
True.
But moving forward, we are now going to preview Argyle Liberty at Grapevine Faith. Argyle Liberty is 2-1. Grapevine Faith is also 2-1. Liberty is a 9.5-point favorite moving into the contest. Both teams are solid, and we have Faith projected to finish or to win Division II, District 2. Jacob Vaughn and Brady Janasek have both proven to be an elite duo for Liberty, while Faith has John Raybuck, Chase Cross, and Clayton Sebecki making solid contributions for them. Both teams have a common opponent on the young season, which is ESD. Faith lost the Eagles 23-7, and Liberty lost 20-17. At the end of the day, I'm going to have to ride with Liberty here. I severely underrated how talented they would be moving into the season, and I think they get it done in this spot. Walker, your thoughts on Argyle Liberty at Grapevine Faith?
At tab 7-on-7, Argyle Liberty came up to me and was kind of like, yo, why are you showing us love? Why you don't think we're going to be like that this year? And I was like, well, I haven't seen a lot from last year. I want to see how y'all can do this year. And then they went out, remember Wes, in 7-on-7, and they looked pretty dang good.
They did.
And, they talked the talk saying, hey, we're going to be like that this year. And then they've showed it. They beat Prestonwood to start out the year. Argyle Liberty only lost by 3 to ESD and then beat TCES Lubbock. So good 2 wins with a close loss. And Jacob Vaughn looks good, man. Brady Janusek was a guy I knew was going to be on the rise. Quentin Brown was going to be really good. So I'm going to go Liberty in this one, man. But, Faith could keep it close. You never know. But the ESD beat Faith bad, and the Liberty held them close. So, therefore, I'm going to go with Liberty. Ryan?
Yeah. My gosh. I'm high on Jacob Vaughn too, man. He's thrown 906 passing yards already this year. Like he's averaging crazy numbers. Basically hasn't thrown under 250 yards, 7 touchdowns, only 1 interception. The kid looks great. His number 1 wide receiver looks good too, Quentin Brown. And he's only a sophomore. This team is actually really, really young. Besides Jacob Brown at quarterback, I am just I think this team is good, and a win against TCS Lubbock, who is a very, very strong D3 team. You only lost to the ESD by 3, like I just said. I'm high on ESD, and a really, really good week 1 win against Prestonwood. It's too much for me not to take Liberty in this game. Grapevine Faith, in all reality, they'll do well this year, but Liberty has proven too well. They've started too well for me to go against them.
1 second. You know what? Actually, 1 second.
The last one of these didn't go to plan, so I don't know if I would do this.
I will mortal lock Argyle Liberty in this one over Grapevine Faith. This is what I believe in, the Liberty Christian Warriors. Shout out my guy, Coach Roby. I think Coach Wynn has this team in the right direction. I think they get it done here over Grapevine Faith.
Okay, so
hold on. I was shouldn't mortal locks work like challenge flags? If you don't win the last one, you don't get one back. Like,
No,
right?
This is the game of the year. You can call this just the game of the year if you want to. Like this is just how it is.
So now we have triple picked against Grapevine Faith, and Walker has mortal locked Argyle Liberty. So I now have no doubt in my mind Grapevine Faith is going to come out and win this game. We're going to get destroyed for it. We couldn't have amassed worse bad juju against us. There is no amount of knocking on wood or anything that could reverse the juju we have placed against ourselves. But we will see. No, I'm now terrified for that game. Moving on, Prestonwood at Fort Worth All Saints. Prestonwood is 2-1. Fort Worth All Saints is also 2-1. Fort Worth All Saints is favored by 5.5 moving into the contest. In a matchup between two of the better programs in the state, Division I Prestonwood will travel to Division II Fort Worth All Saints to take on the Saints on Friday. McGuire Martin and the Lions offense seems to have gotten back on track, scoring 31 and 42 in their last two games, after only putting up 7 on Liberty Christian to open the season. All Saints also lost in an upset week 1 to Nolan and have since rattled off back-to-back wins against TCA and Holland Hall. I'm actually going to go against the spread here and take Prestonwood to win. I think the Lions have higher quality victories up to this point, and I really think they should be favored in this matchup. I think there's, something to be exploited there. Walker, what are your thoughts on Prestonwood going to Fort Worth All Saints this Friday?
I really kind of like that pick of yours of Prestonwood, but I'm going to go with Fort Worth All Saints in this one. I think that team is just so talented from top to bottom, and I really like this Fort Worth All Saints team. I think they finally kind of had that shell shock of week 1 against Nolan and kind of rebounded from that, and a big win over TCA Addison. So I think they'll be okay. I think they're on the right track to get back to where we thought they were going to be this year, and I think Fort Worth All Saints gets the win over Prestonwood in this one.
Interesting. Well, Ryan, you have another opportunity to split the tie.
Yeah, and I'm going to take Prestonwood here. Honestly, I just think that, I am very high on All Saints, but it's been a little bit different this year from what I saw from McGuire Martin. McGuire Martin last year was the type of guy that, from what I saw, I thought he was kind of like a, more pass guy offense. And maybe that's just changed with the wide receivers he's had. But the last game against the game against Second Baptist, not Little Elm, the game against Second Baptist, he had 3 rushing touchdowns for 96 yards. Very, very good win against Little Elm. Little Elm's a 6A UIL team. You really can't tell me that that McGuire isn't becoming the guy that he's become a quarterback that's a leader. He's a senior this year. AJ Sibley has been really, really good. Last game against Little Elm, 269 yards on 38 rushes. Very much a rush team this year. McGuire still had 218 yards last game, but I think this has become very much a rush offense, and I think that will do well against Fort Worth All Saints.
Yeah, no, I think that's good rationale. We will see come Friday how that turns out. Moving into our final game to preview for the week, that will be Cypress Christian versus Northland Christian. Cypress is 1-2. Northland is 3-0. Sorry, I got Nolan on the brain. Cypress is a 28.5 point favorite moving into the game. So in a match between D3 and D4 foes, Northland will travel to Cypress in an attempt to overthrow the reigning Division III champions. I think Northland has talent this year, and I was very impressed by quarterback Stone Walker whenever we watched them in 7-on-7. And I definitely think this game is going to be closer than the spread indicates. However, I think Cypress comes out on top in this one. Between Hogan and Landrum, I think that they just have the coaching and the talent to get this game done. Admittedly, the shutout against LSA makes me pretty nervous, but I still think they can come out and beat Northland on Friday. Walker, we're very high on Stone Walker. We just gave him the Offensive Player of the Week. How do you think that him and Northland stack up against this Cypress team?
I think they're going to win this one. Stone Walker actually called me out last week when I picked Victoria St. Joseph, and I literally told him I'll never go against Northland again now, and I'm not going to do that again. So, he's the real deal, folks. And Cypress looked beatable in their loss to John Cooper last week, right? And then lost to the Lutheran South. So I'm excited to see how this is going to go for Cypress Christian this week. But I mean, hey, Northville looks really, really good with Stone Walker at the helm, and I'm excited to see them go it. So hey, let's do it. Let's do it, Stone. Let's do it.
Well, Ryan, for the final time this week, you're going to have to break the tie. Who are you siding with?
Yeah, this line is atrocious, by the way. There's no way that Cyprus wins by 29, and not a chance. So,
Someone clip that.
Yeah, you clip me right now. If y'all beat them by 29, I will exit this podcast. In all reality, I think that this game, Cyprus has been on a downward track. And from what I saw in the Lutheran South game, on the live stream, I just really was like not impressed with the Cypress team, which, come out and prove me wrong. But I got Northland here. I got Stone Walker. That's a super impressive.
That's a great
stat
quarterback
line.
name. Great quarterback.
One of the best
that's
names.
a great quarterback name. But that's an impressive stat line. So I have Stone Walker here. I have Northland. And honestly, if Cypress wins this game, that's impressive. But if they win this game by 29. You prove me wrong. You prove me wrong, but I don't think that's gonna happen. I got Northland here. I got Stone Walker, and I honestly think that it's sad to see the downfall I think that Cypress has had, and I think Northland takes over.
Firstly, I want to say Ryan picking against Coach Hogan is a wild move I never thought I'd see today. Secondly, they lost a lot in that senior class. Cody Andrews, the running back, Jackson Owen, the do it all, Griffin Fisk, the linebacker, many others that I'm just not on the top of my name I can remember. They lost a lot of weapons on that senior class. So, I mean, it's a rebuilding year for sure. And I mean, it's exciting to see what they can do from there, and see how they do the rest of the season.
Maybe I'm just uneducated, which I probably am, but I see names like Landrum and stuff like that, and I immediately think that this team was still the same team, but it's not. I clearly don't know enough about Cyprus, so I'll stick to the camera. I'll stick to recording Chris Hogan speeches instead of talking about Cyprus Christian football.
I mean, I'll give you credit, Ryan. I mean, that first week when they beat, who was it? The first week of the season.
Yeah, hold on. I got you real quick. It is Brazos by 54.
Oh, yeah.
Right. When you saw that,
shut them out.
I was like, okay, maybe they're back to being how they thought. And maybe that was just a big win over a team that lost Levi Hancock and, Hayden Tillery and stuff like that just weren't as good as we thought they were going to be this year. And Cyprus is just still on a rebuilding year. So, I mean, it's interesting to see. I mean, Maxwell Landry will get his, but yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting to see how this team's going to do this year.
Yeah, I think it will be, but I don't know. There's a lot up in the air. I think, regardless, I think the lesson that we learn is you don't put too much stock into anything that happens in non-district. So many things are changing. So many parts are still variable that will become fixed once we hit like the middle of our district slate. It's just now is a time that teams are still figuring out their identity and everything is still very fluid and moving around. But, we will see. I think it's going to lead the way for some electric district matchups. I'm incredibly excited to see how this non-conference slate kind of winds down. So I think it'll be very intriguing. In honor of me actually getting to go to the Joji concert this Friday, Walker, what do you think is the better album between his two studio releases, Ballads 1 or Nectar?
For me, I think Ballads 1. I think hits more different for me, but I really like Nectar and I think it's really good. I can't believe he's going on tour before his album comes out. That's interesting.
Know that is crazy. I think the exact same way. I think Ballads 1 holds much more nostalgia for me, but I think, yeah, dude, for a lot of reasons,
because that was it was out right before our senior year, I think.
It came out the night before I played Bishop Gorman, and it was
senior year fall on that rain, just driving down the roads with Joji. Dude. It's different, man.
It hits so hard.
But I want to say, because Wes will be there, what's the concert? Saturday
night.
I will be at a private school game this week. Let's be crazy. Whoa. I will be, for my other job, I will be actually at Parish Episcopal against South Oak Cliff at Parish. And I'm excited to see how they do this here, because this will be the first time any of us will actually be able to go see Parish live this year. And I'm excited to see if they're the real deal.
So although I am slacking this week, Walker will pick that up and he will get to go see Parrish. I do have to push the Joji question a little further. We'll end on a light note. What's the best album or what's the best song off of Ballads 1? You can't say Slow Dancing.
Ballads 1. Let me go through it. We're gonna take
you've got Yeah Right, you've got Can't Get Over You, Why Am I Still in LA, See You in 40. Attention.
I low key kind of like RIP. I kind of
Dude,
like
RIP with Trippy. It's not bad.
it's not bad. That one.
Oh, yes. Yes. I see.
I've,
This is the Trippy that I know as well, but
there we go.
I actually do know some Joji songs myself. So I never talked to y'all about it, how I know some of these different songs, but yeah, I got a little thing. Is this Test Drive? Is that the one I know?
Yeah. Test Drive is good. What Joji songs do you know, Ryan? I'm curious.
RIP, obviously. I know Slow Dancing. Everybody knows Slow Dancing. I think I can pull it up on my phone real quick, but yeah. It's I have
While you're
I have a
looking
good
at
little
that,
playlist.
I think Slow Dancing in the Dark might be the definition of a perfect song, and I will go to my grave with that.
Wes,
Yeah.
I want a video of you crying to Slow Dancing in the Dark on Friday night, and I want a video of it, and we're gonna post it on the next episode.
The really, really, really sad thing about that is there is a not 0% chance that happens. The chance that happens is not zero. Like it might happen.
Or like you do off the next album. One of those, bro.
Yeah, Like You Do is gonna be really hard to get through. So is Glimpse of Us, even though I haven't had as much time with that. But yeah, I'm gonna hear Slow Dancing, and all of a sudden a bunch of memories that I've tried to block out from fall of 2018 are just gonna start coming back really quickly, and I'll be like, shoot.
The first 4 songs on this playlist that I listen to are all
You're gonna have to
Joji.
read that.
Yeah, Slow Dancing in the Dark, Yeah Right, Test Drive, and then World Star Money interlude.
I used to know how to play that on guitar.
Such a good song.
Have you listened to that album In Tongues, the blue one, Ryan?
I have not. To be fair, I have just a couple of Joji songs here throughout that playlist, and so that's the ones I know the most. But yeah, one of my favorites has to be Test Drive. That's one of my favorite, and then obviously RIP has Trippy on it, so I know that.
Okay, Ryan. So I'm gonna give you some homework before we record next. I want you at some point. I want you to listen all the way through Ballads 1, Nectar, and In Tongues. All three, both of his LPs and his EP.
Yeah.
I think you will enjoy it.
All right.
Now listen. I do have to warn you. In Tongues is straight depression. So
it is.
Listen to it. If you don't want to be put in a bad mood, don't listen to In Tongues. It is depressing to listen.
You might have to tell your girl, hey, break up with me for like an hour, and like I'll get back with you, but like I need to be depressed.
We'll see how that works.
Okay. With that being said, and with our nice 6-minute Joji segue, we will end the episode. So as always, I have been 1/3 of your hosting crew, Wes Tolleson. Walker Lott and Ryan Schroeder have excellently been your music critics for the episode. We will see you next week. See you later.
3, 2, 1.